Hi, this is Dr. Helen Sue, and I'm here to answer questions about mental health. Now, it's really stressful time, and one of the most commonly asked questions, especially from people with marginalized identities, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC, maybe someone living with a disability, or someone who's queer, a big concern about finding a counselor is, how do I know they actually have any skills? Like experience working with people from my identity group, because I don't want to have to spend counseling time educating a counselor. Plus, a counselor that doesn't actually have competency can actually do harm by making a person feel invalidated or giving bad advice. So I've compiled a few questions that you could ask as you're talking to a potential therapist or counselor. Right? That it's okay to ask questions before you decide to invest the time and the money and the vulnerability to enter therapy. That as you're talking to a potential counselor, you can say, I'm really seeking someone that will be a great fit for my concerns. We both want this to work. So I'd like to ask some questions. One, how often have you worked with clients before who share some of my concerns or identities? So for example, whatever's important to you. I'd like to know if you've worked with someone before, maybe who has immigrant parents or is from a working class background, whatever is important for you. Two, how long has your therapeutic relationships with BIPOC or clients typically lasted? Like, how many sessions is it usually? And I ask this because if they're going to be honest with you, that matters. There's a lot of research actually showing that because so many clients who are people of color or from marginalized cultures go to therapy and have a negative or bad experience, they just don't come back. So sometimes a person might say they've seen a lot of clients who may be of your culture, but maybe they don't work together long because all of those people actually leave after like 2 sessions, and that would be a warning sign. So it's a good question. If they say, I've worked with some of these people for years and years or months or weeks, that's a little bit of a better sign, and you can talk more about that. The next question, could you just tell me what kind of training that you have had in blank, my concern or community, right? So for example, if a client asked me that and say that they were Black, I could immediately say, sure, that's a great question. I have attended the convention of the Association of Black Psychologists multiple times. I've been reading these books and I've had these trainings. So it shouldn't be a difficult question for your therapist to answer if they've actually kept up and refreshed their training about how to best serve your community or your interest. The next question, could you tell me about how you receive feedback and how do you check on therapeutic progress? So do they ask you how things are going? Do they send you a survey? Are there opportunities to get feedback? You want to know that a person doesn't just make assumptions, especially culturally, right? Like, for example, with Asian Americans, sometimes we have a hard time saying to someone's face, like, I don't really, like your suggestion, or, I'm not sure if that was a microaggressive thing to say to me. So like, how do they check feedback? And can I give different forms of feedback? Like maybe I could fill a survey or write something that I'm not comfortable having a confrontation with you right now. But yeah, you want to know how do they get feedback and check that they're doing good work. And another question is, how do you address intersectionality in counseling, right? And they should know what intersectionality means. It means I don't treat every single, say, Korean American client the same, because a Korean American who came to the US when they were 6 is different than one who maybe was born here or is a transracial adoptee, and they may have different careers and sexual orientation and religion. So how does your therapist address and assess like these intersectional parts of identity to best serve and tailor to each client? And the next question is, are there any specific readings or video clips that you could recommend that have helped you as a therapist develop your culturally responsive skills, or that you recommend to clients. Like if I have a client that's interested in some things about racial identity or Asian American history, for example, or family dynamics for Latino families, I could recommend some things that they might want to read that I've read, or some videos with speakers and other experts. So again, could they please share what kind of resources might be helpful and of interest to you, and also help you understand what's their thinking, what's their understanding, and what's their approach, so they can help you. And that's it. And finally, you could ask, what are your thoughts and reactions as I ask these questions? Because ideally, your future counselor will say, I think it's great. I think it's good that you're like being empowered, that you're really trying to understand each other here to see if we're going to be a great fit to work together, so that you can grow and find therapy to be a healthy and supportive space. It's a really bad sign if you ask these questions, right? That's less than like 5 minutes of questions, far less. And if a therapist is really defensive or doesn't know how to answer them, and expects you to give answers, or feels like you should just accept that they're licensed, therefore you shouldn't ask any questions, that's not a really good sign that that person really is going to be a good fit and have good skills, especially to understand someone from a marginalized experience right now. You should not have to spend your therapy time doing a whole bunch of educating your therapists. There are lots of great therapists of color, or queer therapists, or therapists living with disabilities, who can really understand and validate your experience. So again, those are just a few really simple, short questions that you might want to add to your repertoire when you call and screen a potential counselor for you. I hope that's helpful. Hit like if that was helpful, or drop some more questions that you might have or that you'd want a psychologist to address in the comments. And good luck. I hope you find the right support.